Welcome to the Scam Economy with your host, Matt Bender.
Super Bowl 57, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Did your favorite team make it to the Super Bowl this year? Well, whether they did or they didn't, you know who's definitely not at the Super Bowl this year? Are you ready for some crypto? Well, I hope not, because we're going from Crypto Bowl in 2022 to, hey, what happened to that crypto thing in 2023? Welcome to Scam Economy, everyone. I'm your host, Matt Binder, and on today's episode, we're going to take a look at the crypto companies that ran Super Bowl ads just last year in an attempt to bring more people into crypto and make it go further mainstream. And what happened to them since then? Does anyone remember that Larry David FTX commercial? And of course, we'll take a look at the 2023 crypto Super Bowl ads. Don't get your hopes up. As usual, you can support this show by going to patreon.com/mattbinder and become a monthly paying subscriber. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel at youtube.com/mattbinder. Check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/mattbinder and find links to all the places you can find the podcast version of the show at scameconomy.com. Now to the Super Bowl. And joining me now to discuss all of this is Brandon Sutton, host of the Discourse podcast and my co-host when I join the Majority Report for my weekly, visit, I guess, my weekly stint at the show. Brandon, nice seeing you again after I just saw you last week, but welcome to Scam Economy for the first time, making your debut here.
It's a pleasure. Honestly, it's kind of bittersweet. That means this week I won't be able to listen to Scam Economy because it'd be a little weird to listen to myself on the show for enjoyment. But it's definitely a pleasure to be here talking about scams, in the past tense, not the scams that you and I have planned for the industry in the upcoming year, obviously.
Right. We have to get started really rolling those out because there's a lot of money going around in the crypto world, and it seems like they're all not as much, right? But still a lot. But they all seem to still be. I have to say, I saw a report recently from Chainalysis, which is like a blockchain analytics firm, and apparently, even though while the rest of crypto was cratering, like the industry was cratering, the scams and the hacks were never there never were more scams and hacks than there were in the past year.
Oh yeah, I cannot imagine. If you get a podium and you sort of Olympic podium and it's 2022 crypto winners. Number one is scammers and hackers. Number two are the few exchanges that are also still around, banging around. I guess just Binance, really, Kraken, Coinbase, right, etc.
And they're just winners by the osmosis of still existing, not because they actually did anything victorious. They're just alive.
They made it. They're survivors. Right. Ultimately, they have not passed off this mortal coil yet. So just surviving, not being in jail, is a win in crypto at this point. And not in third place, way sort of not even in the losers, because if you're in the Olympics and you lose at the Olympics, you still made it to the Olympics. But outside the arena are the retail crypto investors, and that's what that's where we are in the crypto industry coming into 2023.
Right. Now, in 2022, the beginning of the year, well, every year, at the very start, 1 month into the year, is the Super Bowl. The NFL is very big in the United States. I believe it's actually the biggest sport. And it's the most watched televised event. The entire country, not really, but the entire country almost watches the Super Bowl on TV. So by that measure, it is also one of the most sold or most profitable, probably both, honestly, most sold and most profitable TV time when it comes to like advertisers buying commercial space, commercial time. And 2022, last year, was a big year for crypto because a bunch of crypto companies had spent money to advertise during the Super Bowl. It was a whole thing. I mean, people were calling it the Crypto Bowl. There was people who were cautious about it, compared it to the 2000 boom, the dot-com bubble, when a bunch of dot-com companies, like Pets.com, for example, also bought Super Bowl ads. And lo and behold, I think they were like, back in like 2000, I think there were like 17 companies that bought ads. And the following year, only like one or two of those companies were back for a second round. Like the rest either failed and went under or could not
It was
afford.
one. E-Trade.
It was just one.
E-Trade, I believe.
All right. That's even, yeah, that's amazing. So only one out of the 17 in 2000 made it back the following year. So this year, those naysayers and those skeptics and those pessimists, it turns out that they were right, and and the 2022 crypto boom in the Super Bowl advertising department will not make a reappearance. We're not going to see the same amount of crypto ads this year. I mean, I think that goes without saying for anyone who's paid attention over the past year, what's happened to crypto since those Super Bowl ads aired. And so I was looking it up just to get together which of those crypto companies will be making a comeback, and we'll revisit those companies shortly. But we should talk about what's coming up in the 2023 Super Bowl. Some people might be listening to this after the 2023 Super Bowl, so this might not come to be a surprise to them. But I was looking it up, and exactly 0 crypto companies are advertising during the Super Bowl in the United States of America.
I mean, that is a big downgrade from what was it, 4 last year, which doesn't seem like a lot, but how many crypto companies are really, marketed specifically at U.S. investors or U.S. sort of, I guess, retail investors? And, ultimately the ones that were in having ads in the Super Bowl last year, they're not doing so well.
Right. I mean, I honestly was surprised. I thought there would be some crypto company like this is their whole thing, right? The idea of don't spread FUD. We're all gonna make it. Diamond hands. We ended up, don't sell your crypto. Reach for the, we're going to the moon. If you sell too early, you missed out. Have fun. If you don't buy in at all, have fun staying poor. So I thought there would be some company to live by those various mottos and slogans to, go all in and say, we got to advertise just so we could, pound our chest and say, hey, here we are. We're the one company who's advertising because we're the one who made it. But no.
They should have, John J. Ray III should have taken out an ad from FTX, a new one where it's just like, have you seen this man? It's like Sam Bankman-Fried's face, again, like on a wanted poster, like old-timey Wild West type. But from the article that I read about it, it seems like they weren't allowed back. It seems like there were ads in the works up until December, when the FTX news came down, or I guess that was late November. FTX cracked because that was right before Thanksgiving. And, after FTX was found out to not simply just be insolvent, but likely criminal, it seems like Fox News kind of pulled the plugs on whatever contracts they had for ads, or not Fox News, Fox Sports, I imagine, pulled the plug on whatever contracts they had for those ads. And it seems like it wasn't necessarily an easy decision to make because they were having trouble filling the last 10%. But, I imagine there's just a lack of desire to be liable for, or even just implicated. Now, when I say liable, I don't mean like legally liable, right? We know it's probably unlikely that anyone suing Fox News for FTX. I keep saying Fox News guy talk. We talk about Fox News on Majority Report so much. Whenever I see you, I think Fox News instead of Fox Sports. But, I imagine that they're not necessarily worried specifically about like the legal liability coming from FTX, but just, the social liability of promoting products that are unfit for retail investors, unfit for sort of the everyday consumer. In preparation for this episode, I went to the cryptocurrency subreddit to see what they were saying about this news, because obviously this news dropped that there were going to be no crypto ads at the Super Bowl. And, I saw two large trains of thought. The ever present, we're early. This just proves how early we are. In fact, 2022 was too early for the ads that we ran because cryptocurrency is still in its infancy. And so therefore, the fact that there are no ads this year is good, because that gives us chance to like circle up and get our stuff together, not in so many words. And then, also people sort of doing the ever, again, another crypto cope tactic, comparing the ads and how dangerous the products being sold in the ads are to like cryptocurrency. So they're like, oh, but I bet there'll be ads for Bud Light. I bet there'll be ads for, Hennessy. I bet there'll be ads for like DraftKings. Why aren't they getting rid of everything that's bad if they're going to get rid of crypto? And, ultimately, it's just the answer's simple. Like, people like those things, and people don't really like crypto anymore.
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, that's like, I feel like that is a perfect encapsulation of like a lot of the things. Like, my issue with crypto, mainly in terms of like how it should be seen as gambling. Like, it should literally, like, the whole idea of how it should be, the regulations on it, so it could be traded with protection. I mean, I don't think that should be the case at all. I think it should be regulated like it's a casino, like gambling. Like, it should be seen in that way. Like, it should not be taken as a serious sort of asset class or a financial asset at all. Like, it should be like a craps table.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if it's suitable for that kind of gambling regulation, given, we already have regulations that cover what crypto are. They're called securities laws. And, as much as they dance around how those laws should apply to their industry, we know that what most of the crypto and ICOs and, what they do is pump unregistered, at least in the United States, securities. And so, gambling, DraftKings, a lot of sports gambling, because that's really why they put these things, crypto specifically advertises at sporting events. That's why they put, LeBron James, or they put Tom Brady or Stephen Curry in their ads, is because they want to hop on the people, they want to ride, sort of piggyback on the people who are already opening their wallets to sports gamble and try to make it a comparison to crypto. But, the comparison really is night and day. Like, crypto seems way less of a sure thing than gambling. It seems like you have a way better chance with the information that's available publicly about the teams. You can be a fan of one team over the other. You can be a fan of one player over the other. You seem like you have like a way better chance of picking the right team to bet on in a basketball, football game than you do of picking which of the current cryptocurrencies are going to go to the moon, and which are rug pull, and which is X, Y, and Z, and which are just the ICO, 90% of the token is controlled by the exchange, or you're like, seeing wash trading. So, I mean, I think really, if crypto was as safe as gambling, as safe as like the lottery or whatever, or as transparent, it would be allowed at the Super Bowl, but it's actually not. And also, the thing you can say about gambling, I think we've all seen especially in New York State, the influx of like DraftKings ads, the influx of like ads, promoting sports gambling now it's been made legal. But none of those ads are as aggressive as crypto. If I got an ad from like a sports gambling site that was like, are you man enough to bet your child's college tuition money on the next Super Bowl? Like, I would think that ad is crazy. I would think that is like a crazy ad, and whoever designed it does not necessarily, understand like how marketing works. But that was what they were pumping at crypto companies, and people were making fun of it. But apparently, Matt Damon was the voice of a generation, a voice of, a generation of leaders and future leaders telling you that if you don't put mortgage your home and put it in Bitcoin, like, can you call yourself a man? Can you call yourself a provider? Don't you want to be like Magellan? Don't you want to be like the Wright brothers? could you imagine like if someone told you that like betting on the Las Vegas Raiders makes you like the Wright brothers? You think they was crazy. But,
Right, right.
you know,
Are you mad enough to invest in a crypto? I mean, here's one interesting thing though. Your read on this is different than mine, and as I'm rereading this, I do think it's unclear. You read it. You read so basically what we're both talking about is there was a few articles actually that came out. One with AP, and I think one where they might have spoken to someone else. But this is basically Mark Evans, the executive vice president of ad sales for Fox Sports, which is the outlet that's going to stream the Super Bowl. He's on the record here saying that, let me pull up the exact quote here, that 2 crypto advertisers had commercials booked and done, and 2 others were on the 1-yard line. But once the FTX news broke, and this is, okay, so he's quoted as saying the 2 commercials from crypto advertisers were booked and done, and 2 others were on the 1-yard line. And then that's the quote. But then I'm looking at the way different outlets are covering it. And for example, Fortune has, once the FTX news broke, those deals weren't completed. And then, I'm sorry, that was the AP. And then Fortune has those deals, when the news of FTX implosion broke, those deals were subsequently scrapped. It's unclear to me. Now, I read it as the crypto companies backed out. The AP headline, I believe, is, where is it? One second. Super Bowl ads are officially sold out. Beer is spending big while crypto pulls way back. Now, to me, when I read that, it sounded like crypto was saying, we don't want to advertise anymore. We're not doing it. We're out. We're not doing it. When the FTX stuff broke. You read it, though, as Fox scrapped it. They said, they didn't want to do it. Did you see anything more that made it, that Fox coming out and saying they put the kibosh on it? Because I think it is unclear now that I'm reading both these articles and thinking from both sides.
Well, I mean, the article that I specifically read said that they actually had trouble closing on deals so the article I read said that by the end of summer of 2022, they had sold out basically 90% of the ad space for the Super Bowl. There was generally a recession, obviously, so a lot of companies were spending less on that kind of advertising at the time, and so they had difficulty closing that last 10%. So when I read the part where they said that they scrapped these deals in the last, if we're going to just keep using football puns, in the last quarter, then I took it to mean that no, this was an executive decision at the executive level, at the marketing level, to not be associated with essentially companies that lead to class action lawsuits against people who are associated with them, because we know now that people are filing class action lawsuits against Larry David. They're filing class action lawsuits against Stephen Curry, anyone who was really in the ads that people saw. And so, I don't think I think it's generous to believe that the crypto companies pulled out voluntarily. If they said, you know what, FTX spoiled it for us, people not only associate crypto with the sort of criminal scam that FTX was doing, they believe that the advertising that was being done leading up into the bear market, let's say the crypto collapse of that started in the summer of 2022, was done to essentially keep the Ponzi scheme going at a bunch of these schemes. Like, they were just trying to raise money from new suckers because people were taking money out, institutional investors and retail investors alike. So I don't think that has changed. I think that what we see probably, and because crypto companies haven't stopped making commercials, and I think that's something we can talk about, because while America is not airing a crypto commercial, Canada is airing one during the Super Bowl.
Right. Let's get into that. But I'm sorry, really quick. I found one more interview with this Mark Evans from Fox Sports. It's from Sports Business Journal. Let me read this. Evans cited 3 reasons this Super Bowl's ad sales came slower than previous years. This is not the one you read, I don't think. Especially considering that Fox started the regular season with the Super Bowl 90% sold. First, there's the collapse of FTX and other crypto companies, which had bought several spots early. FTX had, in fact, committed to a 60-second spot.
Oof. So maybe it's a little column A, little of column
Yes,
B.
I think so. This year's game, though, will not feature any crypto companies. Crypto companies bought around 5 spots in last year's game. Fox had sold several spots to crypto companies that had to back out. I'm starting to think that maybe Fox Sports did not have a sudden
It was
moral.
It was a mistake, I think, to sell the initial package to rug pull coin dot social security ID theft.com. And I think that, when Fox really looked at it, they had a come to Jesus moment.
Right. It all came together for them when they saw that. So let's now that we got that squared away, and I'm so glad I saw this because I did not see this article till just now when we were talking, and I was trying to find more interviews with this Mark Evans from Fox Sports. But I'm so glad we did have this conversation because I did not know that FTX had committed to buying a Super Bowl ad for this year before they went under. They might be coming back, but before they went bankrupt.
Look, I think if you can say one thing about Sam Bankman-Fried, I should say, he had a lot of foresight. My man was always like 8, 10, 12 steps ahead.
Right.
Not of the competition, but
It is sort of funny though that like, listen, I don't think he's, well, who knows what, I do think he's correct, honestly. Like the more I think about it, when he comes out and says like, oh, if I didn't listen to that, our lawyers, and I didn't file for bankruptcy, and I spent the next couple of weeks raising capital, I could have done it. I believe him. And not because I think he's a genius or brilliant. I believe him because literally after the bankruptcy and after all this shit came out, you had very wealthy people come out saying, I don't believe this is possible. I would still give my money to Sam Bankman-Fried if he came after, if he was starting a new project. I trust him 100%. Like, yeah, he's right because these idiots in the investment world exist. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's amazing. It's just, I can't get over it.
I think between institutional investors and whatever, ad he had planned for the 2023 Super Bowl, he could have definitely raised at least another $12 billion. But, we can never know what happened behind those closed doors. He's lobbed a lot of accusations at lawyers who have a lot of experience managing companies that have been engaging in fraudulent activities. And so we can only know, like, I'm sure he might feel that he could have raised another $12 billion, but pumping another $12 billion into what might have been a Ponzi scheme is just going to get you more time in prison. At some point, you just have to pull a plug on this thing. I think that a lot of the idea behind these crypto companies comes from, a lot of the lessons learned from the unicorn ICOs of the past like 5, 6, 10 years in the tech industry. And that's this idea of we can grow so big and so fast with investor money that we eventually like subsume the entire market to the point in which like, well, if we default on a few loans, if we can't pay our rent for all these like office spaces that we're renting to sublease out, like what are the landlords going to do? What are the banks going to do? Like they say, when you owe the bank $10,000, the bank owes you. When you owe the bank $10 billion, you owe the bank. And so I think that what he feels like is he didn't get big enough to eventually be able to say like, doesn't matter, I did it. But I think with a lack of transparent accounting about how much liquidity is actually still in the crypto industry, it's hard to believe that like pumping out $12 billion, it wouldn't have just gone to, the endless creditors and debtors that, FTX has, or a number of these people have. Like, I think that's the part that has people sort of confused and concerned and a little bit shaky. It's just like how much money it says I have on this app, on the little screen that I have, but like how much money can I actually withdraw from this app to my bank and put into filthy fiat tomorrow is what a lot of people are thinking. And you hate to say it, a lot of people engage entirely with technology through apps like these. They engage entirely with finance, with media, with like communications, with the world through very sleek, well-designed user interfaces. And they've, very rarely been subject to what looks like a real financial institution app just going like, oh, money. No, no, no. We don't do that here. And that's what's, we're happening. We're having like a very, I think not we, but the crypto industry and people who were, previously very supportive of it are having a like a rude awakening with what it means to like lose liquidity, I guess.
Right, right. I do think though that like exactly what you mentioned, the numbers on the screen in these apps. I think that's also like part of the reason why so many of these crypto exchanges are able to get away. The ones that are overtly, running things in a shady manner. I think they're able to get away with it for so long because these numbers just exist on the screen, and a lot of these crypto people are the retail investors specifically do go by those slogans and catchphrases I mentioned earlier about not selling. So as long as those numbers are there in their app, so a large portion of them will never, at least for the time being, while crypto has not reached the heights of the moon yet, they won't ever need to withdraw because they're going to keep it in there until it keeps growing. And that's one of the reasons why I think these exchanges are able to keep going for as long as they are able to.
Oh, absolutely. And it's also one of the reasons that a lot of these, like, not a lot of them, but certain cryptocurrency prices like Bitcoin and Ethereum go up. Like in cryptocurrency users, from the perspective of a consumer, someone who uses like a banking app, someone who uses online banking or online shopping, I think cryptocurrency users are very willing to excuse poor, customer service, poor optimization, poor user interface, just to feel like they are smarter than the average person who just uses their bank to, shop online on eBay or shop online on Amazon or shop online on any digital storefront. Like, the new thing now is that Binance has totally or is going to totally shut off withdrawals of USD. Before it was only USD over $100,000. Now it's just all USD. Why? Well, who knows? It might be money laundering. It might be a liquidity issue. Pick one out of a hat. It doesn't really matter. You're not getting your money out of there directly. And you go to the cryptocurrency subreddit, and what they say is like, but how does this stop me from converting whatever shitcoin I have into, Bitcoin or Ethereum or stable coins, transferring that to Coinbase or crypto.com, which still has banking access currently in the US as long as Silvergate holds up, and, exporting my cash that way. And it's like, no, I guess nothing stops you from doing that as long as it works, but it's certainly more effort than I would go through to like transfer money from like myself to PayPal or Venmo someone money to pay them back for like splitting a cab or something. But, for me, I think the lack of ease of use is very easy to rather their willingness to excuse the lack of ease of use is really easy to understand when you understand, like, for all the pomp and circumstance about like being early in the future, it's all about like getting rich. Like this is like you thought get rich quick schemes. What was crypto.com selling you in that Matt Damon ad? That you would get rich and that maybe you'd save the world along the way, and that's just a bonus to it.
Right, right. While I know we could go either way right now. We could talk about the caveat in our discussion about how there's no Super Bowl ads this year, but there's an asterisk there. We could talk about that, or we could we're already into it. I guess we might as well continue and just make it official. What happened to those 2022 crypto advertisers? I mean, we already covered FTX. They had that ad about Larry, with Larry David basically poo-pooing on, major discoveries or major inventions throughout history. And then, of course, it gets to him being introduced to FTX. And he's like, it'll never be anything, which Yes, it's very funny to look back on that now and see how prescient it is that he was correct. But also, that was the script written for him, and he got paid by FTX to promote FTX. So it's not really like Larry David was sharing his opinion on FTX. Like, it was part of the kooky little storyline. You know what I mean?
He
Like,
should be the only one allowed to keep the money. I think everyone else should get it clawed back except for Larry David, who ultimately did warn you.
right. Yes, I really do wonder if they were going to continue that. In the, I am obsessed now with this idea that they were going to run an ad in 2023. Um,
Yeah.
were we deprived a Jerry Seinfeld crypto ad? Because if so, I will be very upset. Because that would have been probably the most unintentionally funny, worst ad we've ever seen. It had to have been like it.
I'm just trying to think of like what the angle would have been in 2023. Assuming the crypto industry was still in shambles, but FTX was, still around, right? Not having been exposed, or let's say they're a legit company. I don't know how that could possibly be, but let's say that they are. Like, what would they have done? Because ultimately, Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, was going around post the collapse of Celsius, post the collapse of a lot of these exchanges, trying to shore up the industry. For right or wrong reasons, he was trying to, I guess what I say for wrong, shore up people's faith in the value of cryptocurrency, probably because his exchanges worth was directly tied to that faith, and being exposed was directly tied to that faith.
And
But like,
simultaneously trying to become the face of the entire industry himself. Like, he wanted to be
yeah,
like the made man, like the, I don't know, like the Tony Soprano, or the I don't know, the guy at the top of the food chain that everyone had to come to. I mean, he was already doing it whenever one of these like crypto lending companies were going under. He was the guy to show up and say, "Hey, I'll buy your assets and save you. The company will live under me." He was trying to become that guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it gave him access. It was a great strategy to subsume all those companies that were going under. It gave him, great PR. Everyone was like, "Oh, thank you, Sam Bankman-Fried." It gave him access to maybe not 100% of the resources that the company that he was subsuming had. So, for example, like when he tried to buy, I think with BlockFi or Voyager, it was definitely Voyager, but maybe also BlockFi. He wanted all of their assets, all of their customers' coins, so he could keep sort of passing them about to each individual who he owed to keep the party going. And I think that, it would have helped shore up faith in the industry long enough, I think, until, or at least he thought, until the next bull market. And then, people wouldn't be taking money out of crypto. People would be pouring money into crypto. And except there would only be one place to pour money into this time. At least one place, ideally, if you wanted to be part of the legit crypto industry and not like deal with the Binance, who knows what they're up to, right? And that would be FTX. And so he would just be able to get out of it somehow. Probably wouldn't have worked, but it would have, extended the longevity of his company. But I think, like Sam Bankman-Fried going down sort of changed the timbre for a lot of these companies who are still around, and how they choose to advertise, now. Before 2022, everything was like, are you man enough to be in crypto? Are you man enough to bet on the future, you fucking loser?
Right.
And now it's like a nice like guy in a sweater sitting by a fire going like, let's have a conversation about transparency. Let's talk about what it means to trust an institution,
Right.
and it's like it's obvious that this is what they feel is necessary to reestablish trust in their industry. But I mean, I wonder, because we're so mired in the crypto world. We spend so much time reading about it, and reading about it from people who are also mired in it, like whether it's people on crypto subreddits or people who cover it professionally. But I guess I still have a hard time wondering where the everyday average person is on crypto, like where they are on it, like what is, your person who is still like not in the industry yet, hasn't bought any crypto, still sort of crypto agnostic. What do they know what do they think's been going on? Because from my perspective, the industry is like in its death throes. But on the outside, the crypto, Bitcoin, the price is up. it's up 30% or whatever from its like low a few weeks ago, and people are excited. Like, I wonder if there is still a part of the population who was undecided on crypto and like they think it's a good time to get in, because that would just be like,
Right. Well, that's exactly why it's up. Like, right? I saw it go up, and I wrote about this after talking with a few people, and it's being the price is so clearly right now being manipulated. There's no reason for it to be going up when it did. Like, it started popping right at the beginning of the new year. There was no news, no change. The stock market went up a little bit, so you can say, okay, the ebbs and the flows in crypto usually follow the stock market, and if it just went up a little bit like the stock market did, that would have been okay. That's just the people just getting back into some of their investments or whatever. Maybe there's a more positive outlook overall from investors, but crypto just went back to like, what is it? It's like 24K. Bitcoin's at like 24K right now.
it's like 20, 23, 22. I think it's certainly over 20.
Right. And that was after it like nosedive to what, like 16 or a K or something
Yeah,
like that.
it was like 16 for a while.
Right. Yeah, it's so clear. And I think it's for that reason that the average person like you or I, we look at that and we go, okay, this is just the players in the industry doing what they do. But for other people, it's like, it's back up. I knew I should have bought. Not gonna be fooled again. This happens all the time. Oh, I should have bought the dip. That's constantly how they go about it. And that goes back to this. The companies we're talking about, and the one specifically that we keep like, I mean, they all sort of do it, but the one that so clearly did it was Crypto.com with its Matt Damon ad, Fortune favors the brave, and then they did one with LeBron.
Yeah.
That's the one that aired at the Super Bowl. I mean, this is a company that still has their own arena. Like there was worry that they weren't going to be able to pay for it. I'm assuming that that's probably still a worry for the people involved, but right now it's not been an active thing going on. But I mean, they clearly what would have been more like manly enough to show that like, we're still here, and they're not running an ad. I mean, in fact, not only are they not running an ad, last June, right after this would be right after the beginning of crypto winter, when the domino effect starts with the fall of Terra Luna, Crypto.com laid off 20% of its personnel, 20% of its employees just. I believe it came out to, according to Forbes, 250 workers. I mean, clearly you got things going on with these companies, because they're not we'll get to the other ones too, but they're not the only one. I mean, FTX obviously basically went bankrupt, and they're figuring out what to do with the assets and what could be brought back to make customers whole. And that's what happened to FTX, number one. But number two here, we got Crypto.com. Not bankrupt, not out of business, didn't have the fall of Sam Bankman-Fried, and they basically knocked 1/5 of their employees gone.
Well, not just that. Just this past week, Crypto.com has been cut off from its European banking channels because they were cut off. They were currently, I think at the time, they were using like, let's just call it a shadow bank Transactive to bank through Lithuanian central banks. And that's being caught up as part of a money laundering or anti-money laundering campaign. They just no longer have access to Euro banking. And this goes back to what I was saying about the ads on not the ads, the numbers on app screens and people's financial apps. Like, your app might say you have 10,000 euros on Crypto.com, but your ability to extract that money out of Crypto.com to your bank is just severely limited. I think David Gerard has a good piece on this. And a few people have a good piece who are covering sort of like the slow cutting off of these crypto exchanges from traditional banking channels that has started to happen post Gemini, post FTX. Like, it's kind of a story that's going undertold as people are just becoming, again, more concerned with the number going up.
Right. And so another company that had run a crypto ad in 2022 that's conspicuously absent this time around, is Coinbase. Now, this one is interesting because Coinbase is seen as, well, first of all, it's the number one crypto exchange in the United States of America. And this is the Super Bowl. So, I mean, if there was a company that's going to be running a Super Bowl ad, you would think it'd be Coinbase. And you know what? I'm gonna, this is pure speculation on my part, but I'm going to say that they are one of the companies that was going to do one, that had been in touch with, because they had a successful ad by Super Bowl commercial metrics in terms of like the if people don't recall, Coinbase was the company that had the QR code going back and forth on the screen, like hitting the walls of your TV and bouncing back and forth, like the old school like DVD logo when the DVD logo screensaver would come on, and when you scanned it, you went to their website and you could get involved in a giveaway, like a crypto giveaway. I think it was like $1 million or $2 million, something like that. I have no idea who won or if anybody won or where that was announced. That would be interesting to take a look at. But so that was apparently some big success. Their website even went down from all the traffic, which means a lot of people were scanning that QR code or clicking the link once it was posted on social media. But 7 months after that ad ran, Coinbase too laid off 20% of its workforce, 950 employees.
Yeah, no. And I would believe that you're correct that Coinbase, and if there was a company that had to be told, we don't do crypto ads here anymore, I would believe that Coinbase would be the one, because they have been running ads since the collapse of FTX. They actually ran an ad a few months ago. I want to say about 2 months ago. You might have seen it. I don't remember the full contents of the ad. I just remember that at some point it has like an all blue screen. It just says, "Ignore the noise, keep building." And if by noise you mean all the people screaming in the streets that they've lost their life savings, then that might be hard to ignore if you're one of those people. But assuming you're one of the people who got in early and was able to and are still able to cash out, then I guess you probably should just keep ignoring the noise. I think that, the funny thing about these cryptocurrency exchange ads is that in many ways they conflate the success of the cryptocurrency exchange itself with the success of the people who might be, transacting on it. And that to me is sort of like the height of comedy, because Coinbase will make money, and a lot of other these exchanges who exchange against who trade against their customers, like we know FTX doing, will make money if the line goes up. They'll make money if the line goes down. But ultimately, they don't make money if no one is being onboarded. They don't make money if people aren't consistently adding more money into their system. And so they just want more adopters. And so all they can really advocate for is people ignoring that all this is happening and putting their faith into Coinbase, the one exchange that is currently publicly audited. Their financials are public. They're a publicly traded company in the United States, one of the only ones. But they hemorrhage money. And they're also not currently out of trouble because they might be cut off from their current U.S. banking channels because they bank at Silvergate. And Silvergate has been in trouble since the Gemini and I think Genesis and many of these other FTX style company going down debacle, because they just had to be bailed out by some sort of housing loan situation. I'm not as familiar with that. I think that Bennett Tomlin and Cass PNC do a good job explaining like the mechanisms by which Silvergate Bank was able to be bailed out after they had billions of dollars withdrawn due to like the crypto exchanges having, quote unquote bank runs. But they're another company that doesn't seem to be doing well financially.
Right.
They're just burning publicly.
Right. I should just make an addendum because I'm thinking of how I said it in my head. Add an addendum, I should say. Their total personnel is 950. Now, they didn't fire 950 people. That would be that would have been pretty crazy. So I mean, I guess the one company that ran ads last year that came out the least scathed, I guess, or the most unscathed, however you want to put it, would be eToro. But they're not really a full blown crypto exchange. They're like a Robinhood, where it's for stock trading and other things too. eToro had run an ad just like their one was the "Fly Me to the Moon" one. Remember that, where the song "Fly Me to the
Yes,
Moon" was playing?
and because I remember it because it opens with like I guess it's just a guy walking out of like some building and he's like texting on his phone or like putting like a post out and his handle is at Ape Jack or like at Ape John. And so it's like, yeah, it's really funny. Like for his handle to be Ape John, he's like definitely like a hexagon PFP on Twitter.
Right. And, and so eToro ran their ad, and then this past summer, again, after the domino effect of all the crypto companies failing, a smaller reduction than the other companies who laid off 20%, both Crypto.com, Coinbase, and of course FTX going under. eToro laid off 6% of their employees, 100 people. 100 people fired. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this happened so quick after those ads ran. Imagine if instead of spending millions of dollars on these Super Bowl ads, these companies, which seemingly did not really appear to gain anything, being that they just laid off a bunch of people in the months after. Imagine they put that money towards, I don't know, their employees or...
Well, I think they were trying to buy legitimacy. I think
Yeah.
that pre 2022, crypto had a lot of money theoretically in the ecosystem. Bitcoin had reached an all-time high of almost 70,000. They were finally getting coverage on CNBC. They were bringing in more, they were buying legitimacy in a variety of forms. FTX wanted to hang out with Bill Clinton, which to me is a red flag. But some people find that to be endearing. Like when you're on stage with Bill Clinton. A lot of scammers have been on stage with Bill Clinton, especially Bill Clinton. But ultimately, I think that there was a struggle to get legitimacy both in the heads of retail investors and consumers who might put their money into these platforms, and also just have that legitimacy transferred to become like legal, legitimacy, no longer being maybe if enough people started transacting on these websites, maybe if enough people started demanding that the government makes a carve out for NFTs and crypto and its securities laws to classify them as commodities or classify them as something that was even more friendly to the companies promoting them, that would be the ideal outcome. Because they had already made as much money as possible without having access to more traditional sources. Like, they want, and I think this was something that is interesting because it happened, in Canada. What they wanted public pension money. They wanted people to be able to invest large sums of money from public sources into crypto. And it seems like the fall of these companies have had the opposite effect because now, the Fed, is saying that banks who engage or banks who hold security assets that are crypto need to, start divesting themselves of them. Basically, it's a no-go. It's just not a safe. It's not a safe investment. You shouldn't be collateralizing loans with these things, obviously. And, that's sort of, that's the opposite of the effect that it was intended, which is why it's funny that crypto people on cryptocurrency subreddit are thinking like, yeah, this is just an obvious sign that we're still very early. It's like, no, you guys are being cut off from traditional finance. You're not going to be able to get like your money out if you don't start hurting.
Right. I got to add another correction here because I'm never going to doubt myself again. As you're so I was going over the Coinbase details. And it said this article I'm reading from, this one is Forbes, was going through how many people each of these companies laid off. And for Coinbase, it said 20% of its personnel. In parentheses, it said 950. And then it said 2 years ago, Coinbase had a workforce of 1,250 people. So I'm thinking, okay, that sounds weird to me. Of course, they didn't lay off 950 people. If 2 years ago they had 1,250 people, that must be the overall workforce. So I doubted myself, added that correction. And then I did a little, while you were just talking to us, I did a little bit more research right here. And it turns out, no, Coinbase in that 2 year span grew to over nearly 5,000 employees. So yes, they did actually lay off 950 people this past summer, which I had called crazy if they laid off 950 people, which they did do. So it is crazy, and they did it. I mean, what I always wonder, what do all these people do at these crypto companies? Like those crypto Celsius, I remember reading they had like hundreds, if not thousands of employees. What do these people all do at these crypto companies that seemingly are just go under and then come out later that, it was just a Ponzi scheme and all the numbers were fudged. Okay, if all the numbers were just fake, then what were all these people doing? What were they doing?
Honestly, I think it probably takes a lot of more people than you'd imagine to not only run a Ponzi scheme, but to obfuscate from other people within the company that you're running a Ponzi scheme, but also as somebody who has worked in like an office before, what does like anyone do at work actually? Like, unless you have a very specific function, a lot of people just send emails all day. I imagine a lot of the people were spent doing customer service. Ultimately crypto is very complicated. So a lot of it is customer service, partnership deals with YouTubers, your YouTuber manager, ad revenue stuff. I can imagine that everyone had a lot of functions. I think that really it's always surprising to find out, despite all these people, mostly the crux of the business is like one guy making a lot of bad deals. Like we have like 1,000 people working here in different roles, but like at the end of the day, this is all left up to like one dude deciding to put like the customer funds into like a hedge fund.
Right. Yeah.
Run by two guys out of like the Seychelles. And, these are just like bad decisions. Like, you have like the Winklevoss twins. I don't know what their names are. But you have them trying to blame Barry Silbert, trying to blame the person that sold them the magic beans that they paid for with their customers' money. And, you find yourself like, okay, but, why did you buy the magic beans? Aren't you supposed to be savvy business people? It's a very interesting, I think, game of pass the buck, but I think it's appropriate for an economy that's ultimately zero sum.
Right. By the way, their names are Cameron and Tyler. Very, very obvious names for the people of Winklevoss's, the Winklevoss nature. But yes, their names are Cameron and Tyler. My God. Yeah. So, yeah, it's amazing to see how what was supposed to be like the year of crypto, it's almost too perfect. Like, I wonder if those companies just didn't do Super Bowl ads, was that like the vibes and the aura that they gave off? Was that just like them asking for like total meltdown that year? Like, if they didn't do the Super Bowl thing, would like crypto just all the bad stuff that happened in crypto, that in 2022 would it just not have happened? Like, I feel like they were asking for some trouble.
That's what like crypto people seem to argue. Not necessarily that if they hadn't advertised at the Super Bowl that, 2022, the summer, the bear market wouldn't have happened. But like there seems to be an element of magic thinking to it that refuses to engage with the fact that a lot of these companies, based on their bankruptcy reports, have been like insolvent since like 2020. Like a lot of these companies were never profitable. Like a lot of like these business models that were being touted as like the future, like cryptocurrency lending or, like passive income art were just proven to like be smoke and mirrors the entire time. But I think that savvy people, and that's not to say savvy as in like smart generically, but people who are familiar with finance, familiar with like the history of finance, a lot of people called it when they started seeing the Super Bowl ads, when they started seeing more celebrity endorsements, that the bubble was about to pop. When Paris Hilton was on Jimmy Kimmel show, promoting like ape JPEGs, even people who I think were on cryptocurrency Reddit who were generally crypto friendly were like, oh, this is a sign that the market is like about to blow up because like celebrities are involved now. And so I think that really, there have been red flags since the beginning that this industry was mostly smoke and mirrors. I know people love to point like in hindsight, even though in foresight it was pretty bad too. And at the moment that, the interview where Sam Bankman-Fried goes like, well, the industry is like a big magic box that you put money into and you take money out of, and what's inside the box doesn't matter. And it's just like, that is the definition of the industry. And what people don't like is that defines like a crime, and they're trying to argue now that shouldn't be a crime, that like the Ponzi box shouldn't be a crime. And it doesn't seem like the industry ever functioned on any other mechanism. Like it doesn't seem like there was ever a moment where like, because to be frank, it doesn't have to be a Ponzi box. It doesn't have to be a box where you put money in and other people put money in and you only get to take a little bit of money out until it's all gone. It could just be a money laundering box. It could be a box where like me and 10 of my friends put in $100, and then like somebody who's trying to escape regulations in a different country or has a lot of dirty money from crimes, who knows, puts in $1,000 into that box. And for the privilege of mixing that money around with us, in order to get some clean money, he like takes or rather we take a cut of the money that he put in the box. And it can also work like that. And a lot of crypto companies are being pinched for that kind of work too. But both of those things are going to ultimately, I think, for the retail investor, the person who's not sort of like getting into crypto because they're interested in the technology or getting into crypto because they are, interested in, some people are just interested in being in Ponzi schemes. They see them as a good way to make money. And, I guess if you go into it with clear eyes, good luck to you, but it's certainly not a vehicle that's suitable for like somebody who's just like watching the Super Bowl to put like large sums of money in. Because even if it turns out to not be like a scheme where like FTX or SBF just like disappears your money, you might still end up in a situation where your money has now been mixed up. I guess this is sort of the situation with the crypto.com in Europe, where your money has sort of been mixed up in a way with dirty money that now makes it unaccessible to you or inaccessible to you for the short-term future. Doesn't involve bankruptcy, doesn't involve any of that, but still you, someone who needs to pay their rent next month, does not have their money. And so I think that, it's just not a safe thing to use as a bank, despite what was being sold to a lot of retail investors. And I think that, even people who are clear-eyed about the crypto industry, like looking, I don't know how you can be clear-eyed about it but still be like investing in it, quote unquote. But seeing it being pitched,
that's the entire market that's into it, though.
we're seeing it being pitched as like a risk-free investment or like a risk-free alternative to like a bank account that provides higher yield, is like, that's a step too far. There's clearly a level of fraud in the industry that is meant to obscure how volatile it is. And, when you look at that, it should make you suspicious. Like, well, if it's the future and it's all these things and it's so valuable, why do you have to obscure one of the, key problems with it? People should still be willing to engage with that.
Right. No, absolutely. So let's actually now talk about, because we teased it earlier and then we got so involved in basically breaking down all the companies that bought the ads and then I guess got their just desserts last year, that there is a asterisk we added to the story that there are no Super Bowl ads, no crypto ads, running during the Super Bowl this year. And that's there's two addendums here. One is that there is a Canadian-based crypto exchange, BitBuy, that will be running a Super Bowl ad, but only in Canada. And then the other asterisk that needs to be added is that there is a Web3 gaming company called Limit Break that is planning to give away 10,000 NFTs during the Super Bowl with their Super Bowl commercial. Not quite the $1 million giveaway that the exchanges last year did. Uh,
I mean, I think it's a shame that Fox Sports did not allow the Trump NFT team to promote their NFT at the Super Bowl. I think that, it's a shame that our former and many people believe our current president is not allowed to hawk his wares on the greatest show or the greatest stage in the world. But also unrelated, did you know Canada has some of the most trusting people in the world?
oh,
They're a very trusting people, nationality.
I think BitBuy really plotted this out well. But it's funny you bring up the word trust because let me make sure I got the right article. Okay, in Fortune, they covered how the crypto exchange BitBuy is running this ad during the Canadian broadcast. And according to this Fortune article, BitBuy's Super Bowl ad last year centered on missed opportunities. They ran an ad in Canada last year too. But the company's focus this year will be on the theme of trust. The spot will feature NBA 2022 Rookie of the Year Scotty Barnes. From missed opportunities last year to trust this year. Really hitting that on the nose there. I mean, we need you to trust us, right? We need you to trust us because if you did last year, it didn't work out well for you. Like, I mean, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? Like, the theme this year will be on trust. The issue really wasn't trust, right? Because all the people who lost all the money, the retail investors, they did trust these companies, right? I mean, the trust was there. It was just one-sided, right? I mean,
look, for trust to exist, there has to be trust from both sides. You have to trust us with your money. And we need to trust you to not file class action lawsuits once we lose your money. And so without that two-way street, the crypto industry simply cannot function. But I do think that, I mean, that's the trajectory the crypto industry is on, because ultimately it's just hype. It's an entire industry built up on hype. There are very few products. I think the Bored Apes finally put out their Newgrounds era Flash game to sort of go with the ape JPEGs. People don't like it, obviously, because it was never about the game. And so it's just after a year, none of the products ever materialized. People are still used to, like, when they hear about a company, they're still used to, like, eventually something coming out, like eventually a product being launched, whether it's a movie, whether it's installation for an art exhibit, whether it's a convention, whether it's an actual consumer electronic. They're used to things moving forward. Crypto has had a year in the spotlight, and it's just fumbled the bag at every turn. And so now all it can do is beg consumers to trust them with their money, which is not a good sign, because it doesn't come across like you can trust us with your money. Like when Chase does a commercial about, like, we have 100 years of keeping your money safe. We have 100 years. That's what traditional banks really should do. They should start, like, the same way that crypto banks and crypto companies, like, constantly shit talk our terrible banks. Like, banks should just really, like, do a lot of commercials to dig in that knife. And I'd be surprised if we don't see a lot more commercials coming out that are, like, making fun of crypto now. Like, normal brands like Pepsi, I guess, or Wendy's. Like, I know the Wendy's social media accounts always dunking on people, like, doing a lot more, like, anti-crypto stuff. That's what's hot right now, and frankly, they deserve it. They deserve it. But these kinds of commercials, like, ignore the noise, keep building, trust, like, centered. And of course, they have a MVP in the commercial too. It's trust, but it's also like, here's the NBA MVP for 2022. Don't forget about us when you're sports gambling. Like, they just want you to trust them with your money. Like, they want you to give them all your money and just not worry about it. And that is I think that's very troubling.
Right. So over under on NFT people clicking the wrong link when scammers try to take advantage of that 10,000 NFT giveaway, and they connect to your wallet and steal all the NFTs and crypto you already have in that wallet. Over and under that happening to people. It's almost assuredly going to happen, right? I mean,
I don't think anyone's going to do it this year. I think they crashed Coinbase last year. People are tired of it. I think that, that's the real story. Like all the brands that had started working on their NFT projects last year when crypto was like on the tip of everyone's tongues are now kind of having to like half-heartedly still roll them out. Like, are we still like, Square Enix is like, are we still doing the NFT thing? Are we still working on this? And it's like, yeah, we already spent like 18 what on it? 18 million? Oh, I guess we're still doing NFTs, and it's just, it shows you how fast it shows you how fast the industry collapsed. Whether or not people get hacked on this NFT, like it seems to be just a matter of time. Just in the past few, like you said, scammers have really made out in 2022 and going in 2023. It seems like they still will make out. But also there have been a lot of high profile hacks of people who have a lot of familiarity with Bitcoin, a lot of familiarity with like the, NFT space. People like Kevin Roost of
Kevin
G4
Rose
Tech.
of the guy.
Kevin Rose, yeah.
Yeah, you're thinking of the New York Times.
I'm thinking New York Times.
Very crypto friendly.
Latecomers guide to crypto writer. No, Kevin Rose of G4 Tech TV fame.
Right.
Lost a
also
lot of.
Also founder of Dig, which worked
Dig,
out great. He knew exactly what to do with that bad boy, right?
Exactly. Lost a lot of money and a lot of NFTs to a hack earlier this year. I want to say like this month or maybe January. One of the core coders of I think Bitcoin also was recently hacked or something, or like lost their money in some sort of like social engineering. Not that it matters to me. Money's gone either way, hack or social engineering. I think crypto people pay a lot of attention, and they oftentimes call for like these very detailed, nuanced sort of breakdowns of what specifically happened. And there wasn't like, you clicked the wrong link, but at the end of the day, you're just one person who's been using the internet a certain way for the entirety of your life, suddenly trying to learn to use the internet a whole separate way just to protect a single ape JPEG. And on the other side of you have like a highly skilled North Korean hacker team who is dedicated to taking that ape JPEG away from you. And there's no way you're going to protect it forever. And I think that's just like, that's what the crypto industry preys on more than anything. This sort of like the self-confidence in one's own ability as like this hyper rational consumer who's able to like just discern which coin's going to go up from a casual glance, the kind of autodidact who can learn how to read complex code, in a weekend, in your free time, and who can also serve as your own, not just like bank, but your own like bank internet security officer. And ultimately, that's just the sort of false promise that our society has given a lot of people in order to avoid having to properly regulate not just the crypto industry, but a host of industries. Because the truth is, a lot of the problems that crypto people sell their products using are real problems, many of which I should say countries with better banking regulations, countries with better consumer protections have already solved without crypto. But certainly a lot of the problems that people have identified with our financial system, infrastructure, and also just the lack of opportunities that people who, are, let's just be generous, just trying to get by, have, they're right in identifying those. The reality is that the solution that they have is not going to work for the vast majority of people. And in fact, the people who it will work for relies on the fact that it won't work for the vast majority of people because it'll be extracting wealth from them. But it does sell itself on the idea that, like a lot of conspiracy theories online, that you're very smart for engaging in it. You're very, very smart for being one of the only people to realize putting your money into the hands of, in the case of the NFT industry, anonymous teenagers in a foreign country who have never worked on this project, but who promised that it's going to give you a 10x return within the first month, you're very savvy for doing that, because that's the kind of investment that's going to give you sort of like generational wealth, like Jay-Z, without having to do anything. And, it seems silly from the outside, but there are just a lot of desperate people, a lot of financially desperate people out there, a lot of socially desperate people out there. The crypto industry, they're very friendly. If you want to make friends and you don't mind the quality of them, it's probably pretty easy to get involved in the crypto industry from the social standpoint. You just got to change your avatar to like a JPEG of a monkey or some sort of other cartoon animal, change your name to like Crypto Chad, and suddenly you'll have a lot of friends. A good portion of them will be bots trying to get your social security number or get your MetaMask ID, but you will certainly have a built-in community. You might also lose your life savings though. And so I think crypto, like a lot of conspiracy theory groups and a lot of like fringe ideas online, is perfectly poised to take advantage of people within our society at this point in time. And ultimately, solving for that involves solving for a lot of the issues that we currently have with consumer protections, with government inactivity on protecting people, with sort of our tech fetishization at this stage of like capitalism, with the idea that, well, technology is going to solve every problem from the most minor, like, how I clean my room, to the most major, like how we deal with the fact that our climate is dying. And, and in between that, it's also going to make me rich. Like if I invest in the right coin.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's a great place to to end it. I mean, that you just wrapped it up perfectly right there. That really is the thing with with this entire industry. It's all about that facade of helping and wanting to better society and the world, and it's done with a smile and a friendly face. But at the same time, the way your riches are made is distinctly from convincing other people to buy in so you could sell off at a higher price. And your revenue, your profit comes from those very people. Like, there is no other profit. Like, there is no other way to win in crypto. Like, it's not a business where you're selling a product. It's not, you are basically convincing someone else to buy your tokens, selling them the hope that they will end up selling it for more than you just sold it to them for, which eventually there's going to be a time when the person cannot do that. I mean, that could only happen for so long. I mean, well,
I think in the best case scenario, they imagine a future where they're like techno lords, and we're like living in like techno serfdom, and they're not necessarily selling their coins anymore. This is like the HODL mentality of Bitcoiners, right? They're no longer like selling their coins for like dirty fiat wealth to like the next person down the pipeline. They are instead renting and leasing out like their coins or like their space on the blockchain, which is being used by someone for something. What that something is kind of, I think, irrelevant, but there is idea that like, these coins represent wealth in the most abstract way, and it's going to make them landlords in some sort of future digital economy where like these coins are the only currency available, and these NFTs represent the only sort of space left that we can occupy. It's all very like, I think, vague still in their heads, but it's folk knowledge, right? Like, I think online a lot of stuff gets, we're a society that has an appreciation for science and data and technology. We know that it's important for convincing people of the reality of things. And so in some senses, we value science, but we don't really have a good understanding of various elements of it. So many people, I think, see the complexity of Bitcoin. They see the complexity of something like Ethereum, and they automatically assign it value because of that complexity. And part of that complexity is just the perceived complexity of not really quite understanding how, like, things like coding works, not really understanding how things like financial instruments work, not really understanding how things like, technology work broadly, but being, familiar with the operation of it from the consumer standpoint, it just leaves them in this sort of like liminal state of like in awe of technology and trying to derive some kind of like not just financial value from it. Like, I'm going to sell these coins, but they're going to derive like social worth from it. Like Bitcoiners imagine a future where they're not just like rich because of their Bitcoin, but that they always have like large chested, like half Asian, let's be honest, half Asian bride. And it's because a lot of like Bitcoiners come from like the online anarcho-libertarian, online like, incel community. Like they imagine that Bitcoin is this golden ticket to a world that the entire social order has been flipped, not on its head, not like, a lot of far left ideologies want to flip the world on its head in some ways. We're put workers on top and put
right. This is not
like, this is a reshuffling of the traditional capitalist order, but
with the same system in place. Yeah.
The same system or worse, same system or worse. Because they imagine like a Mad Max world where like the only thing that still works is Bitcoin for some reason. But like, their main gripe with the system is that they perceive themselves as having been locked out just for arbitrary reasons, not arbitrary reasons like race or gender usually, but arbitrary reasons like they weren't in the right place at the right time. They weren't one of those people who met like Steve Jobs back in the late 90s, early 2000s, because when they heard the idea for Apple, they would have like immediately like been like, oh yeah, this is genius. I get it, because they recognize Bitcoin as genius. And so they would have been on the ground floor of, any of the large tech companies of the past 20, 30, 40 years. What they don't remember, and I think goes to your point about like the 2000 Super Bowl and the difference between, the companies that were promoting themselves there and then the year after, when that thing is that a lot of the companies, the tech bubble, the first tech bubble, are just gone, the dot-com bubble. Right. It's just like how many of those companies in that first dot-com bubble do people imagine are still around 23, 25 years later? Because the answer, I think, is one, and that company is Amazon. And all the rest of them are gone now, more or less. I think the only other one is like Yahoo. Like, but certainly we're not thinking of titans of industry. All the rest of them are relatively new, not new like, in the past 4 or 5 years new, but new like in how Bitcoin is new. Like they're like 15 years old. And so like things like Facebook and Google are just relatively new in the history of the internet. Certainly they can, and because they're relatively new, at least if we think about like the history of like technology, you can compare them to Bitcoin and see where Google is in the same basic span of time. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's like 9 day. It's obvious when you're using technology that revolutionizes everything. People just complain mostly about the everyday use of Bitcoin.
Right. No, that's exactly. I mean, we really should do another episode on the I guess the what's it called in like the marketing lingo, like the personality ID or the persona ID of the people who fall into this industry, and like
the customer segment.
Yes, yes. What each of their like, because I mean that's basically. No, go ahead.
I think I read an article that was breaking down like the demographics of people like scammed in crypto, or at least like the like the number of victims and what they turn towards. And I think it's probably indicative of the crypto industry whole, which is like it's Western guys largely, at least the ones we hear from, between the ages of like 25 and like 45 who are investing money in this industry. Because the people you largely hear about, not the people who, cloak themselves in the veil of the single mother with 3 children who put all of their like life savings into like Gemini Earn. And so like they made that decision. But, you hear mostly from like the men in their early 20s to late 40s who are trying to flex on Instagram, and that's why they're getting into the crypto industry. And I think that, that is why it's gotten sort of like the derogatory title of like MLM for like suburban dads. like while like the suburban moms are getting into LuLaRoe and trying to like hustle culture their way to like, financial freedom using like leggings with patterns on it, their husbands are sinking all of their money into like ape coins. And it's just like it appeals to different parts of, I think, the American personality types and psyche, but I think ultimately it speaks to the larger desperation of our society that so many people are getting involved in these types of things. Like so many people feel either trapped literally in like their financial situation or trapped in the perceived financial situation that they find themselves in. You have people who have $100,000, $200,000 to put into like Celsius, and you're like, how? You're just like, how do you have this money? Like, no one has this money anymore. Like, you're like the last person in America who has this much money in the bank, and you gave it to like a company incorporated in the Bahamas. Like, oh my God. And I think, that's why it's easy for some people, especially online, to have like a kind of a hard shell to like people who lose money in crypto, because it's just like, come on, this is the dumbest scam ever. And not only is it the dumbest scam ever, but they're also the most smug about being caught in the dumbest scam ever. Like they fight you when you try to extricate them from this trap. And
Right.
you're like, it's just ape photos. It's just photos of apes. And they're like, it's going to make me rich.
Did you play the game where they what is it? They poop? Is that right? Is that the game?
Like, it's easier to understand when they tell you, when you understand that like they also think it's going to make them rich. And like that's the thing that it's easy to like. I watched a lot of scam stuff. I was really addicted to like the scam docuseries that were coming out like May last year, like The Dropout and the WeWork one. And I think that the WeWork one is like the best example for like the crypto industry broadly, where people, when they describe WeWork, they describe it as like a cult of personality surrounding like Adam Newman. And then when you hear Adam Newman speak and you like watch all of like the things that he did and you hear about them, you're like, oh, this guy's a dummy. And you realize that it's actually way more likely for people to just like organically form a cult of personality around someone if they actually believe that it's going to make them rich. And I think the crypto industry does a good job of like throwing out things that justify the desire to be made rich quickly. Like, they're always trying to build wind farms in Ghana or like unbank the bankless. But at the end of the day, if I am on the streets selling something and I see a passerby and I go, hey, do you want to save the world? They're not going to stop. They're going to go like, no, I'm sorry, I'm on my way to like work. But if I go, you want to save the world and get rich while you do it, they're most likely going to stop. And that's just the value system. And so I think that like we have to call it out so we can properly diagnose why so many people are falling into those sorts of traps. And it's just like, yeah, there is just a general sense of monetary uncertainty that is in some ways manufactured in this country to keep like workers down, but it's definitely something that's being felt regardless of income level across like the precarity that our system has baked into it.
Right. No, absolutely. And on that, being that you said that, I want to make sure that we have enough time after we record here to talk about our scamming of these very people we just discussed. I think we really got the marketing, the exact group of people we're after. So, I think we got it down pat.
I think that I've been inspired by the scam that is currently being, or I guess I shouldn't say scam because, everyone is so litigious now. The new project by the builders,
right?
Suzu and Kyle Davies, former hedge fund managers of 3AC, that they've now monetized I hate to say it, monetized the collapse that they largely caused by selling debt instruments selling debt instruments that allow you to speculate using the remnants of your last speculation on the cryptocurrency. And also you have people like Justin Sun who are selling like FTX debt tokens, so I think that really the next move is to monetize the rot. And so how do we make money off of people who are making money off of people who are making money off of losing money is the question. What's the play?
Right. And I think that will be the next big thing after AI, which obviously was the big thing that everyone went after crypto. It'll be whoever can figure that out will have all the keys necessary to unlock the next great minds to scam. Brandon Sutton of The Discourse, and of course you can see me with Brandon every week on the Majority Report as well. Brandon, why don't you take this time to let people know where they can find you online, and feel free to promote anything else you want to promote.
Absolutely. You can find my podcast on every major podcasting platform, Spotify, iTunes. You can find my Patreon on patreon.com/expand the discourse. SoundCloud, same, soundcloud.com/expand the discourse. You can find the illegal security I'm pumping or planning to pump on all major cryptocurrency exchanges that still allow for USD transactions. So none of them, I guess. That's not true. I don't want to be accused of not being accurate. I don't want the people who put their money into companies incorporated in the Maldives to tell me I don't share accurate information online.
Right. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining me, Brandon. You got to come back on, obviously, because seriously, this episode we could have made 10 different turns and do 10 completely different episodes. So looking forward to having you back on.
I'm sure that the crypto industry will be an endless well of content for the both of us.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of Scam Economy. As always, you can support this show by going to patreon.com/MattBinder and help this show grow by becoming a monthly paying subscriber. You can also catch the video version of this show at youtube.com/MattBinder. You could also follow me on twitch.tv/MattBinder. And if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, don't forget to connect your Amazon account to your Twitch account so you get that free Twitch Prime subscription each month. Basically, a free subscription to give away to your favorite creator that gets them paid by Amazon. You can also follow me on Twitter @MattBinder, follow the show on Twitter @ScamEconomy, and go to scameconomy.com for all the links to the podcast version of the show. And while you're at your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to leave a review. And with all that said, I'll see you all next time on the Scam Economy.